I see an envelope, and it is headed my way.
Oh, no.
Let's see what we got to talk about. What makes a headphone sound live?
Oh,
Well, since we were just
Okay, yeah.
talking about tape, is it live or is it Memorex?
that's
live?
right. Something like that.
Yeah, because obviously it's not breathing. Well, sound live. It doesn't
Yeah.
look live.
Yeah,
Can't dance. Well, can it?
maybe.
Yeah.
You don't know?
What makes it sound live?
Things, probably.
Yeah, what?
What?
So what it is that makes a headphone sound live? Sugar and spice and everything nice?
Well, in this particular question, I think it's best to involve the entire system chain since it is somewhat pertinent. So I would extrapolate that to mean headphone is in the headphone system, or you put a headphone on the experience you receive from that headphone.
Well, let's start with
including
the
ear.
headphone.
But with a headphone, the headphone's job tends to be to reproduce what's put into it, right? So you have some sort of electrical input, and you produce a mechanical output. You move air. The closer you can move the air to the actual input stimulus, presumably the closer it is to the recording, and hopefully if the recording's done right, it sounds live.
I don't know if I ever heard it described it that the closer you could move it to the stimulus.
Okay.
No, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It
Yeah.
sounds like perfect engineering
Seems
jargon.
factually accurate, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay,
The
great.
acoustic pressure should match the electrical
Yes.
signal penetrating the wire.
Well, I guess like the track of the week that we just did that was live. Like for me, when you listen to something that sounds live, it sounds like you're not listening to headphones anymore. It just sounds like a space. you
Yeah.
know?
It recreates the space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, there's no headphones on anymore.
Yeah.
That's hard to do.
So I'm not sure if the question means
Like, how to achieve that?
yeah, well, how do you do that? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's micro detail. That's the little stuff.
Mhm.
That's the sub milliwatt range of the recording that gives you
More often than not.
gives you a sense of what is real and live, right? It's not anyone could produce loud sound. The raw
Yeah.
volume is easy for any driver to reproduce, but the subtleties are what the brain keys in on whether you pick out live or not. So
Yeah, the
how do you-
nuance.
so how do you do that with a headphone? Well, obviously you need light, low mass light drivers. That's why planers. I think that's why planers are so good at it.
You need high performance.
HP.
Yeah, but the entire playback chain is quite important, and
Mhm.
of course the source material. Because if you have a bad recording, it's not going to sound live no matter what gear you put downstream, no matter what EQ you have. If the resolution and detail isn't there, it's going to be very challenging to make it sound.
Yeah, you can't really
live.
EQ live. You
Right.
really can't.
It's a different thing.
You could use effects or something like that to, or DSP or something, maybe to mimic a live, by adding reverb here and there at certain
Right.
frequencies, or messing with phase to spread out an image artificially. But usually that just mucks things up. That have to be done on a track-by-track basis, and no one's willing to.
If you had a really great
That's not
recording
gonna happen.
that was done in a studio, I think you probably could add an effect that would make it sound live-ish. You would add, some sort of distortion, whatever, reverb,
Could.
whatever. You would add,
Yeah.
you would add the things you would normally see in a live venue that are not present if you're in a studio, because they try to minimize these things.
What would you add to make it sound live on the recording side?
Probably some sort of an expander. Try and pull some range out of it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'd probably add some kind of harmonic distortion to it, the linear phase EQ, a little bit of reverb, and if I really wanted to go the extra mile, I would set mics in front of some speakers in a room and run
Oh,
it through
that's
that and
pretty cool.
re-record it.
That's a lot of work.
They actually do. Fun fact.
Yeah.
Yep, they put cabs in specialized guitar cabinets in specialized little rooms that have different reflective walls to try and give it a different sound. They mic it up.
No shit.
Yeah, so they look like little closets, but made with bathroom tiles.
Yeah, you're essentially making a room to make a specific sound
Yeah.
and then miking it.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people do that live actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, have all separate amps in different kind of situations, mic'd up differently to have different sounds live on stage. And then you pipe that through the PA.
Maybe you can make something liver than live. You could always make a room. You can add a space to a recording, I suppose.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's the criteria, it needs to have a sense of space. But it'd be tough to do because it would be fake. The space would be probably your brain would figure out that the space is separate from the vocals and the drums and everything. It's hard to separate. Like when you get to our level of resolution, the more you try to fake a space, the more it sounds fake, right?
Usually, yeah. It's got to be done really right.
Yeah, it'd be tough.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it just, you hear the excessive reverb if you got to go that far. You don't hear the room boundaries because they don't exist.
Yeah.
You'd have to re-mic a recording in a room, just play it in a room and re-mic it or something to get the.
That's probably the
a
easiest way to
proper
go
space.
to get it right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the current thing that everybody's doing is like 3D audio in games and stuff. That's fake.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty good, but you're not thinking this is just like being there.
But those are like simple noises, right? It's not.
Well, yeah,
it's
footsteps,
not music.
stuff
It's
like
not
that.
like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not complex, really.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it could be.
It's just shooting,
Well, it depends on the game, I guess.
explosions.
Yeah.
Usually you're not hyper-focused on the sonic fidelity of an in-game experience like that. It's
Yeah.
more about being able to locate
Locate.
orientation or
Yeah,
whatever.
direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So locate positioning is more
Yeah.
important.
Right.
Yeah.
And so some of that stuff does help a bit. You could
Yeah.
add some effects that makes it easier for you
Yeah.
to determine orientation.
Yeah. In that sense, space would be nice to be able to. More space seems like it'd be better from the headphone, at least. I mean, if they're
Yeah.
giving you spatial cues, even if they are artificial,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you would think they're trying to place them with. They know you're using headphones or
Oh,
two
yeah.
channels, so they're
Well, I
trying to
think
place them
A
properly.
lot of times in these situations, people are using Bluetooth gaming headsets or just a gaming headset in general, and they're really not stellar. So
Mhm.
you kind of need these aids because otherwise you lose a little bit when you're playing through a frumpy headset.
Yeah.
You lose a lot of the orientation cues that you would normally have. But if you have really high-end headphones, it doesn't really seem to provide much of an advantage, at least in my experience.
Yeah.
Well, I think the biggest difference in like live recordings is that they're live. Everything, whatever happens, happens. There's no like fixing it up after the fact, like in a studio where
Yeah.
can take multiple takes, and then even afterwards
Polish it.
polish
Turd.
it up.
Yeah.
So it's a whole different thing. Really.
Yeah, live is live. I guess
Yeah.
you can EQ it a little bit here and there and stuff like that, but
It's not like, all right, redo the concert.
I think that's what
You know?
some people appreciate. Though, like I know,
Yeah.
I like certain live recordings, particularly if they're more up close and intimate. Like a whole band playing in a circle type thing in a space. Whether
Yeah.
like Jazz at the Pawn Shop always comes to mind. So it's so intimate.
Well,
And everyone's just right there. At least it seems like they're right there. The mics are all right there, and you can hear each other.
Yeah.
The sounds from each instrument are mixing to each mic between microphones. So there's no one trying to recreate that or trying to guess what it sounded like when it was done. It's being laid down that way right there, and so yeah, to be able to play that back to me is awesome. Whether it's indoors or outdoors, it doesn't matter. It's awesome if they're all playing in a near field type
Yeah.
area.
Well, I think that's a big thing there, yeah, is that a lot of tracks aren't recorded like that, like in the studio with everybody in the same room these days.
Yeah, I know.
They could be in different studios, different rooms, everybody's separate. So,
Yeah.
and you could tell usually, it doesn't when stuff's recorded all at the same time, all in the same room off a couple mics.
Usually, yeah.
It sounds different.
There's a certain coherency to that.
Yeah.
You can just tell it's the same room. I think that today's like electronics, when they're mastering it and stuff like that, they're able to blend. I mean, you think about it, if each person was recording it in a different location,
Yeah.
they're obviously going to sound, the room, whatever they're in, sounds different, the acoustics are different.
Yeah.
And I believe they blend all that together to try to make it sound like they're all in the same space, even though they're not. So, and that, again, that's an art, I'm sure that's an art within itself to make that sound coherent, but you don't have to deal with that with live. You just basically throw a mic in front of everybody and play.
Well, it's just mic placement then.
Or even one mic.
One.
I know some of the reviewers in the magazines and stuff, they review some of these songs, they listen to tracks, and they use tracks for examples of how things sound,
Yeah.
And they'll come up with, like, there was a one mic stuck in the middle of a bunch of guys playing, and that's kind of cool. With stuff going on, too, all around them, damn, you could have a parade going on. And this one mic, this one point source is just picking it all up like that 360 almost. It's almost an acoustic. It's almost even though you're outdoors, it's almost an acoustic overload. That's cool when you get to that level, and you can play that back with all that sense of space, and even get the height element involved. Like fireworks going off.
From my perspective, live recordings are typically reserved for individuals that are very familiar with an artist or very accustomed to that particular song. And you get a lot more cues from a live recording than you wouldn't get normally from a studio album. And I think for some people that's very preferable because you kind of hear how the different parties are working together to create this in real time. Whereas in a studio, a lot of times it could be independent or they could use multiple different takes from different people or different instruments or whatever to put together to have your perfectly timed final cut. But live, it all has to be done real time.
Wasn't that
together.
Isn't that something you musicians like keying on when they're playing together? Is
Well, yeah. Well, especially the musicians in the audience,
Yeah.
seeing how well the musicians on stage are actually doing live,
Right.
you know. So it's like,
There's
it
definitely
shows how
people-
good
yeah.
they're all together, you know,
Yeah.
the whole band.
We
is.
see people like that at trade shows
Yeah.
that they have this live album that they really like for whatever reason. More often than not, it's because they're either familiar with the audio industry, they're familiar with recordings, or they're a musician
Yeah,
themselves.
that's true.
And they appreciate what it takes to get something like that done. And I think there's a little bit more emotion transfer in a live recording than there is a studio. And because you kind of feel how everybody's working together. You could see the timing differentials and how everybody is kind of sort of feeling, how they're pacing themselves through this. There's a lot more nuance to a live recording that you don't have in a studio recording. And so I think if we get back to the root question, what does it take to make something sound live? It pretty much just means you have to have a really good high performance headphone, good playback chain, and a good recording. And then if everything's done right, if there's no critical oversights or flaws,
you're there?
you could get pretty much exactly how it would sound like if you were actually there. If you have a bad mic placement, so it's picking up weird stuff, noise in the background, there's hum.
Well, there's plenty of.
I mean, there's so many
there's plenty
things
of
that
live
could go wrong.
recordings that don't sound so good.
Right.
You know,
Most really aren't stellar.
for whatever reason.
But everything's got to be pretty much perfect for that to work out just right. You got to have really high-end stuff. Everything's got to be dialed in, great recording.
That's what everyone strives for.
Mhm.
Make it sound real.
Mhm.
Make it sound like you're there. So
Yep.
yeah. Or for
But-
some people, they were at the recording. Some
Well,
people
yeah.
are at the live
Yeah, right.
Right.
event and they have the recording on vinyl. Now
We got a
that's
few
cool.
of those though. People they had their own song that they wanted to hear. They were there
Yeah,
for the
right.
recording, and they knew exactly what it sounded like.
Yeah, we had that. People come to
Yeah,
our
we had a few people
our
say,
room.
you know what, this sounds right.
Yeah.
It's the only time
And
I've
some
heard it
say,
sound right.
no, this has been EQ'd. It's changed. It's
Yeah,
over the
right.
time, you know. And
Yeah.
they just knew what it sounded like originally.
Right.
So yeah.
I think it's a good place as any to wrap it up. So as always, feel free to let us know what you thought about this video in the comments. Any ideas for a future episode, let us know that as well. Give it a thumbs up if you felt this video was helpful, and subscribe to see more content like this from us.
Take care. Thank you.